This conference will now be recorded.
Mr. Grega? Let's see.
Pick up, John.
John, you there?
I see him, but we're not hearing him.
Yeah. No, I can't hear him. I can see him talking. He's not muted. No, now he's muted. Now he's open. Still can't hear you, John. You want to raise your hand and that'll signify you're in attendance. Okay, got that. Ms. Phillips?
I'm here.
Joe Schofield? Joe, you want to say here?
Jeez.
I'm not getting your sound either. I got the wave though. Okay. And Mr. Skorsky?
Yes, Phil.
Did you get Glenn?
No, Glenn's muted himself, it appears.
He was talking.
Okay,
Yeah, he's using his phone.
Okay, Glenn, you're here? Okay, all right, so we have everyone in attendance except for
Okay.
Mr. Gifford.
He's here.
I can see him.
Oh, okay, Mr. Gifford, you hear me?
I'm here.
Okay, we've got Mr. Gifford.
Caller 2 has the echo.
And caller 2 has an echo, whoever caller 2 is. We'll probably mute caller 2. Okay, Mr. Measy, if you'd like to retake and roll. And if you'd like, we're starting at the agenda item number 2, the financial report.
Can't hear you, Phil.
Phil, you're muted.
No, he's on the phone.
Oh. Can't hear.
Can put everything on.
Was he caller too?
Okay. No? Okay, hold on a second.
He's muted.
He's muted himself, it appears. That from my end, I tried to unmute him, but it shows mute, so that means he's controlling it. And Mr. Measy, we still don't have any audio from you.
Hello?
There
Hello,
we go.
Mr. Measy.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Loud and
Yeah.
clear.
Oh, good. I had to redial in. Thank you. I sent you the report this morning. It's not on the screen because didn't get it over to Julie in time, but I did send you that email for the April financial. Did everyone get it?
I did.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see that to the end of April, we have spent $111,259, which is 489 from October to the end of April, with the biggest area obviously being access and landscape maintenance. Everyone has that report?
Yep.
Yep.
Any questions?
Yeah, just I noticed, Glenn, that the on the total on the top, the variance seems to be in the wrong color.
I don't understand. What do you mean color?
In other words, it's showing the variance looks like it's unfavorable, but it's favorable. Don't worry about it. It's a minor point.
Actually, well, the budget was 111 and we spent 88. So that variance is 22,000. You're talking
No,
about the third column?
No, I was looking at the year to date with 489 versus, I don't have it in front of me, but don't worry about it.
But, okay. Well, it's a snapshot in time. So, and this corresponds to what we're going to talk about in the agenda for the preliminary 2021 budget too.
Okay, that's good.
Right. Okay. Any questions on the financials? Okay. If not, we'll move on to the reserve.
Reserve report?
Yeah. That we should have a copy of, I assume.
Exhibit A, Chris?
Okay, go over there. It's Exhibit A, it's the tab.
There it is.
No, there you go.
Glenn, it seems to me that your comment about not breaking down the reserve it has some merit. But it seems to me that, and Ron, you can comment on this. It seems to me that it'd be worthwhile to have a capital reserve separate from everything else, because it's something that we should be adding to each year, and it's governed by periodic capital reserve studies. So it seems to me that one we should be, that at least should be separate.
Phil, this is Ron. Well, the capital projects number, the 2.86 million, is about what I think should be in the reserves for the roads and for the preserve.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just a change of title right there.
Yeah, no, I think exactly. I think it's that one's appropriate.
Okay, good.
Yeah. The question is, should we leave everything else effectively unassigned?
Well, if you guys recall, I sent you all through Julie an email that gave some suggestions as to what to do with that $900,000. My view is we should just leave it like that. Okay, because basically what it says is that just money lying there with no particular purpose in mind for it. I don't think that's appropriate. I think we need to do something. You know, the money is there for a reason. What's the reason? And if there is no reason, we should use it to reduce taxes or pay for the budget or something. As an example, we've got the $1 million bill coming up for the Preserve Boardwalk.
Yeah.
I think the plan was to take that out of the what's now called capital projects line. But heck, if you got 900,000 unassigned and we don't have any other claimants for that, we can use some of that to offset the cost of the Preserve Boardwalk.
Yeah, or we could use it.
So
we could use it all.
Well, in theory, you could.
Yes.
You could and bring that to zero. I don't know whether that's the right move, bringing it to zero, but maybe we need to. I can see we have an emergency fund. Maybe that should be a little bit higher if we're going to bring the 900,000 to zero. Maybe the emergency fund should be a little bit higher. You know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a little bit of a surplus in our budget, but we certainly should do something with the 900,000.
I agree. Other comments?
Can't hear you,
Ron,
John.
I would no. Ron, I would ask you, what you keep the unassigned for unforeseen circumstances too. As
Sure.
I mentioned in my email, if we go to reduce taxes or master fees, is that a way to go to you and then use this money? I think we have to be consistent with the aging community to keep that padding or that additional type of funding there, because there could be unforeseen, projects that are going to come up, like for instance, the sidewalks, are going to be $56,000 versus the trimming of the palm trees, etc. So you can look at it as a snapshot in time to say, okay, we should use it now, but then again, you don't want to use it all either.
Yeah, I would certainly not have any problem of leaving some money there, but I don't think 900,000 is the right number to leave there. That's a big hunk of
Well,
money.
how would you propose that we reduce the taxes?
Well, for example, I don't have the percentages in front of me, but our proposed budget is going to raise the fees for our community, I don't know, between 3 and 7%. Okay, well, you can
Okay.
look at that and say, well, there's ways of reducing that 3 to 7% to a smaller number by allocating some of the unassigned dollars to pay for next year's budget. Could do that. I don't know exactly how you would do it, but I'm sure you can allocate some of that money to next year's budget. Don't know how much that should be, but that's a possibility, I think.
Well, you could eliminate the capital reserve that we tentatively have in the budget of 365,000 and take that 365 out of the unassigned, put it into the capital projects. And
Sure,
that would,
nothing wrong with that idea. And that
Well,
does reduce next year's budget by that
who,
$360,000.
who maintains CDs, the certificates of deposit?
Steve,
I have not been involved with that. Is that done by the CDD?
Yeah,
Yes.
Stephen Bloom does that.
Okay, now, do we know the terms of if we collapse, what the rates are on those CDDs if we take some of that sooner than later?
Stephen has that information at his fingertips for us.
yeah,
Okay, because if you take a CDD early,
Right, there's a penalty.
penalty.
the penalty. Yeah, exactly. So we'd have to research that. Like you said, to take some of the reserves for the boardwalk, for instance, we'd have to see what CD is coming up that we can have access to that cash too.
Sure, don't forget from this year's budget, there's $360,000 in the budget that's to be moved, hasn't been moved yet, to the capital reserves. So we would be adding new money to the capital reserves sometime during this fiscal year. We haven't done it yet.
Mhm.
So there's a source of $360,000 without impacting any potential CDs. Same thing with next year's budget. I mean, we
That's
haven't
right.
allocated that money to the reserves. We can just say, when it's appropriate time, we can use CD money to be moved into capital reserves. Don't forget that capital reserves are also invested in CDs. So it may be just an accounting issue, not actually, we're not talking about at this point cashing money. Now, if we use that for the boardwalk, that could be cashing of actual money, cashing in some CDs. But
Exactly.
actually, yeah, we could take 360,000 of that bill and use this year's money to pay towards that. That's money's not in a CD. Okay, and we would, if we didn't do that, when we pay the bill for the boardwalk, we'd be using capital reserve dollars to do that. And that could mean some CDs being cashed in. Don't know the answer to that.
Well, we still have the budget to work on. I would propose that we leave the 926,000 in unassigned at this point, and see what we need to do with regard to the boardwalk and possibly adjusting the budgeted amount that we're charging.
Okay,
Phil,
and the main,
Phil, can
sorry,
you hear?
the main, who's that?
This is John Brega. No, I've been unable. Oh, you guys able to hear me now?
Yeah,
Yes,
John.
Yes.
All right. I tried to enter the conversation before. You need some unassigned money. I agree with Phil at this point. Leave it there. You don't need all that, but you should always have some unassigned amount. I know it just on other committees, you need some.
I
We got to
agree.
determine how much we need, but at this point, I like Phil's idea.
Let me just suggest that whatever amount we leave in so-called unassigned, maybe we want to change the name,
yes.
like operating surplus or something of that nature, so that people don't really believe that's 900,000 that could be taken by someone. If you recall, during the campaign, one of the candidates suggested that, taking the unassigned dollars and doing something else with it. But if you change the name and give it some sort of a purpose, if you will, like surplus or something, that would be an idea, just changing the name, regardless of what amount we left in there.
I think people that understand budgets know what an unassigned, it's money there for something that may come up that we don't have a category for.
Right.
It's
And-
only a name change, fine.
And it seems to me, Ron, that at this point, the capital reserve, or called capital projects on this particular exhibit, but the capital reserve fund it's only included a provision for the boardwalk replacement for the last couple of years.
Correct.
In that we have a major job coming up on the boardwalk, and there is no money, there's only, probably $70,000 assigned to that in the capital projects budget,
That's
or
correct.
capital project reserve, that we probably should be looking to that or a chunk of it to be used on the boardwalk.
Yeah, I think we all had agreed some time ago that that's probably what we would do, using capital reserve, capital project dollars for at least most of the boardwalk. Otherwise, there really isn't any other source other than that 900,000.
Mhm. Bob, is the ponds, the 375, that number okay?
Yeah. Yep. And recognizing that as the beginning of the budget year.
Yeah.
I've dipped into some of that. I expect to be dipping into that. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the starting point.
Yes, exactly right. That was the starting point.
Okay, well, we have already budgeted $365,000 to go into capital reserves for this year. So I think we will need to go forward with that. We can decide what we want to do for next year coming up. So again, I suggest we leave the unassigned amount for use on the boardwalk, because the capital projects or the capital reserve specifically covers those things that are come up in our periodic capital reserve studies. Is that right, Ron?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So do you want me to change, through Stephen, the wording to capital reserves instead of capital projects?
Yes.
Okay,
We
I'll
should
do
do that.
that.
Yep.
And then we want to leave ponds, emergency, and the last
Yep.
category, leave as unassigned.
Yeah. That's what I'm proposing. I would,
right.
let me hear other comments, or is that the consensus of the committee?
I agree with Phil.
Usually kind of close one morning a week. Wednesday or Thursday, David's.
Thursday mornings from 7 a.m. till 12 noon.
What are we getting some background assignment here?
I think that's Chris Schumacher talking to somebody.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to judge that the consensus of the committee is to leave this as it is, except change the name of capital projects to capital reserve, which I think is more appropriate. And this is something we can come back to if we feel we need to.
I'll notify Stephen to do that in the financials.
Okay. Let's move on to the next item then. Bringing no further discussion.
Okay, the next item is Exhibit B
Mm-hmm.
that was sent to you. The next tab. Where's Chris?
Right here. Hold on. I'll get you that.
Thank you.
That's the
Okay.
exhibit I'm looking for. Okay.
So this is the numbers we were concluded on last meeting for this fiscal year coming up.
Exhibit up a little, Chris.
Is that up or in?
Yeah, that's fine. And Scott, can you give us some idea of, we had a couple of these accounts as to exactly what's in those accounts?
Sure, I can. Which accounts did we leave unresolved?
Well, I thought it was the aerator and fountain electric.
Yes, and I'm working on that with Bob Gephardt. Part of the billing that we have for the aerators is actually paid through this portion of the CDD budget. So now that we're at a point to do a audit, we're going to audit all the FPL accounts and compare them to make sure that we have all the accounts properly recorded and being paid for. Now, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, we're not proposing to make any changes to who's paying them because they all come out of the same pocket, but we're just actually going through the audit process because
Well,
the CD.
we won't have enough time to properly assign them before we commit to our budget numbers. However, and for the rest of PPAC, and I'm not sure what I sent to everybody, but I hope I sent this. We got an engineering company to come out and review every meter that should be charged to a pond. So now if you look at pond 13, you'll know the meter that goes there. And that part of it is done. That survey is completed. That was finished yesterday. We then took that survey, it's on an Excel spreadsheet, and we sent to Chris Schumacher and to Stephen Bloom and to Scott Sharnoff. Here is the list of the meters that are properly should be assigned to aeration. And now we have to match those, physically match those one by one, because there's 58, 60 meters or more to the existing FPL bills. So that's the next step, and I ought to have that for our next meeting in June. But what Scott and I were talking about in a little bit with Glenn is I think that we need as a committee, now we're going a little bit further along here, is to do this with every FPL bill. But we're going to start with the aeration, and we'll see how that goes. Once the new numbers are in, I expect to realign the budgets. The only impact that can have on the bill that Scott presented to us in the spreadsheet is it can go down. It can't go up, but it could go down.
Mm-hmm. So would you move those numbers to the ponds budget, Bob?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where they should be.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it's
Okey-doke.
just out of one pocket into another.
Well,
our
but yeah,
perspective.
but from a budgetary, you're absolutely right. It is one pocket into another. But from a budgetary and forecasting point of view, it's just one of those dot the i's, cross the t's. But we really should know what we're spending for. For instance,
Oh.
when we talked last time about not understanding why our electric bill didn't go down going to LEDs, well, once we get these accounts straightened out, it ought to be transparent. We ought to be able
Yeah.
to see it.
Yeah, no, I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't do it. I'm just suggesting that it won't have any impact on the total.
That is correct.
Yeah, it'll be out of one part of the budget into the other.
Yep.
Can I ask a clarifying question, please?
Sure.
Just so I'm clear, on that 45,000 that's reflected on this page, under aeration fountain electric pump, is that money already in your budget, Bob?
No,
$5,000.
No,
we don't do anything with fountains. Nothing. Zero. Nada.
Okay, so that's not what we're talking about then. Okay.
Nope.
okay. Oh, all right, so that one wouldn't change. Is
That's
that
correct.
only fountains in that?
Well, that
account?
was what Scott was kind of unable to determine for us the last time we talked, is to really, it got to be confusing as to what the individual account numbers on the far left-hand side, what they really reflect. What I
Yeah.
think I heard the last time is they reflected the way Lennar did it. Well, that didn't have much relevance to us.
But so it is a piece of that 706,511, that 45,000 for proposed for the budget next year, is a piece of that a pond?
No.
It isn't.
All of that should be. I don't know what it is right now, but what it should represent is what it cost us to maintain our fountains. Not aeration, just fountains. That's what that should reflect.
That's about cutting the grass between like their doggy park area.
Chris, we're hearing you, so you might
Oh, sorry.
touch your mic.
Sorry.
So $45,000 just to maintain those fountains, huh?
Yeah, it's the entry, I believe.
That's not correct, Phil. What it really represents is the fountains, along with the 19 accounts that we currently pay out of this portion of the budget for the lake aerators. So those aerators that are not in the lakes and pond budget are paid out of this one. What we're trying to do is consolidate them all in one area of the budget. Right now, they're split between two.
That was the question I asked. Okay, so that does include some of the aerators.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay,
That's
and
what I thought I understood.
Pardon me?
Scott, and you know that's the case? And
Yes.
I'm not disputing it, but the last time we weren't really sure.
Yes. No, it's 19, that's 26 lakes and 19 FPL accounts.
Okay. I just wanted to understand that because
Yep.
$45,000 just for the fountain sounded like a hell of a lot of money.
No.
I felt the same way, okay.
The
But no matter
note-
what, it can only go down.
Yeah, that's why I added the note there that the FPL represented 19 lake accounts and the 4 fountains.
Okay.
Those 4 fountains are just the big ones around the town center, or does this also include the ones at Tree Line and Colonial?
No, these are just around the sales center.
Okay.
The other ones are charged to the shared expense under features, water features.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Are there any other questions on this part of the budget, which is the HOA part of the budget?
Did we, okay, well, the HOA part of the budget, have we made any progress on understanding what the reduction was purported to be for LEDs versus what we've seen?
No.
Okay.
We need to find out what that is. But that will
I
give us a
mean,
chance.
we can assign a percentage to it, Phil, if you would like to do it that way. But the best way to do it is to leave the budget the way it is and compare the actual savings once they occur.
Yeah, I'm not proposing to change anything in
Yeah.
the budget.
Yeah. But it will be interesting what they propose, a 20% savings in electrical bills, if that really comes to fruition.
Is that what they had sold us on? I don't
Yes,
remember the order of
that
magnitude.
was what was in the proposal.
20%, okay.
So we should see that coming through when the actual expenditures come in.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, we'll be able to probably get a good read on it starting in August of this year.
Mm-hmm.
FPL has given us a projected start date of mid to late June to do the project.
Oh, I thought it was
But we
already
don't,
done.
but we know how FPL holds to schedules.
Okay.
So it is not done yet.
No, they don't anticipate the start until the third week of June.
Mm-hmm. Okay. One other thing that I'm continue to propose that we add to this part of the budget is the $93,000 that we pay in O&M costs, that we should be paying in O&M costs, that would be transferred to us from the Pelican Reserve Community Association budget, with the proviso that the Pelican Reserve Community Association is going to reflect that in a reduction in their assessments to the people in the community. I've asked Philip Rovner to come and kind of give us his perspective on this, coming at it from the PPCA side. Philip, can you give us a little information?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Phil. My name is Philip Rovner, and just by means of introduction, for those who don't know me, I'm the Secretary Treasurer of the Master Association, and I was one of the principal architects resulting in the earlier turnover of the association from developer to owner control, and also for the purchase and funding of Town Center. Several years ago, I collaborated with Ron DePonte to prepare, evaluate, and submit for PPAC's approval reserve study, which your committee continues to use. For the purpose of my remarks today, and because of the acronyms for PPCA and PPAC are so similar, I'm referring to the Community Association as the master, and I'll interchange PPAC and the CDD, all relating only to Pelican Reserve. In July last year, following the June turnover of the master, I communicated with Phil and Nancy Olson with respect to the existing O&M agreement. I had observed that the agreement prohibits the payment of management fees with no commentary or rationale for that provision in the agreement. The O&M agreement came into being during 2009 following the bankruptcy of WCI. Certain assets and responsibility for their maintenance were turned over to the CDD in a belief that the CDD could more readily assure that the required maintenance and services would continue to be funded, assuming that WCI might be unable to do so for an extended period of time. There is an overarching mutuality to the O&M agreement in that the master manager is the on-site representative for CDD as it relates to Pelican Reserve in all material aspects and as so attested in the agreement itself. After communicating with Paul Fish and Nancy Hall, I concluded that the issue concerning a management fee was intentional to hold WCI to some level of accountability and to reduce the Pelican Reserve CDD fee. Note that at the time and until turnover, WCI was responsible for deficit funding and was not being assessed for its pro rata share of master expenses. With last year's turnover, the developer is no longer responsible for deficit funding and is being assessed for units it holds in inventory or unbuilt form for both the master and town center. At the inception of the O&M agreement, there were just over 900 units. As of last week, Pelican Preserve has just a few short of 2,400 units. The O&M budget has gone from approximately $630,000 to $1,400,000 and is approximately 50% of the CDD budget for Pelican Preserve, and accounts actually in dollars for 64% of the master's operational budget, excluding the fees that are associated with bulk services. At the inception, Cypress Grove was not yet under construction.
I'm missing your
home sites which exist today in the area we call New Pelican. The workload has continued to increase substantially without any compensation for the effort. 2, at inception of the agreement, Pelican Preserve was 8 years old, whereas today it is approaching 19 years old. For repairs and maintenance and the replacement of capital items. The master board submitted for your consideration. I'm sorry?
Yeah, Phil, your sound was breaking.
Can you hear me?
You're cutting out a little. So.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
We lost parts of it, Phil, that's all.
I see you.
You got chopped up in the presentation.
Yeah, back up to where you were talking about Cypress Grove.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
We can hear you. Can you hear us? Philip?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. Yes.
Okay, yes, we can.
Okay. Okay.
Sound's going in now.
Okay. Instead of the O&M agreement, only 100 units. Yes, I can. As of last week, Pelican Preserve had just. Whose sound is off?
Your sound shows on. It's breaking up here. It's going in and out.
I can see all your pictures. I can't. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Keep going.
Can you see me?
Yes, we can see you and hear you.
At the inception of the O&M agreement, there were just over 900 units. As of last week, Pelican Preserve has a few short of 2,400 units. The O&M budget has gone from approximately $630,000 to $1,400,000 and is approximately 50% of the CDD budget for Pelican Preserve, and it otherwise would account for 64% of the master's operational budget, excluding the fees associated with the bulk services agreement. At the inception, Cypress Grove was not yet under construction, and neither were all the home sites which exist today in the area we call New Pelican. The workload has continued to increase substantially without any compensation for the effort. 2, at the inception of the agreement, Pelican Preserve was approximately 8 years old, whereas today it is approaching 19 years. This translates to an increased need for repairs and maintenance, replacement of capital items. The Master Board's your consideration a request to fund a management fee of $93,411 based on its calculation of the workload provided by the Master's manager, assistant manager, and maintenance staff person. The master believes this is a valid approximation of the value of services being provided to oversee, manage, and execute the O&M agreement. It is the master's hope can preserve that your committee agrees that the Pelican served community and its owners clearly benefit from an enhanced collaboration with master and PPAC. In this regard, the master is proposing that the payment of this management fee is quite simply payment for services being delivered to maintain CDD's assets. It is the master's commitment that we're to approve payment for this fee for the coming, that the master would reduce its member assessments dollar for dollar. Since the owner base is identical in number, the increase in PPAC portion of the budget would be fully offset. The only remaining is how we jointly communicate the shift on one organization to the other. After discussing this matter with Phil, Nancy, and Ron, the master has further agreed to its willingness to participate with PPAC to more fully evaluate the expenses underlying the O&M agreement, possible outcome being the termination of the O&M agreement as it exists today, the movement of all these expenses back to the master from which they originally came. This will be a complex evaluation because the underlying expenses are to perform work on assets currently owned by the CDD and for which the CDD maintains reserves. And because the O&M accounts for 50% of the CDD budget for Pelican, it also brings into question a number of other factors related to Pelican's involvement with the CDD, the only other operational component being the significant efforts under the dominion and care of Tom's work group. Two, it will be necessary to communicate this change were it to occur because the O&M component by itself amounts to almost $600 per unit. And we do not presently know what other expenses would have to be assumed by the master, which are embedded in the overhead component of CDD's Pelican budget. Nevertheless, the master is committed to this review in good faith with clear understanding that were this to occur, the Pelican Reserve portion of the CDD budget would be reduced accordingly. You might ask the question, why now? And why not wait for the completion of the review I just mentioned? The answer is quite simple. From a pure accounting perspective, this would match a revenue component with the underlying expense. This is common business and accounting protocol. And as I suspect you know, the master is under intense pressure to right-size its budget. Some would even suggest there's a need to reduce the master budget. Your approval of this fee would result in a $40 a unit reduction in the master assessment. With due respect to the role of PPAC and the CDD, it's my observation that the CDD budget comes with far less public scrutiny than does the master budget. At the master's budget meeting, we had in excess of 100 persons attend and a host of back and forth questions and emails on many aspects of the budget. I'd be very surprised if there were as many 10 owners other than your committee members from Pelican Reserve at the meetings associated with the CDD budget. Again, affirming that both organizations serving the same exact population, this small win for the master would appear to be in the better interest of the constituency we both serve. Over the next budget year, PPAC will call upon the master's manager and team to oversee an extensive renovation and replacement of the Borough Ward Hall. The manager has most recently demonstrated his commitment and expertise with respect to the project to replace the Pelican Reserve bridges, and is in the midst of overseeing completion of the renovation and repair of the monuments at the entrance to the community. The master
Your sound is off. So we
Oh,
cannot.
we lost you.
No. Yeah.
Did we lose him again?
Yeah, Mr. Robner, we lost you for some
He's muted.
reason.
He's showing muted on my screen.
Yeah. We unmuted him here again and it just went straight to mute. So Mr. Robner, we got a sound
There
issue.
he is. He's back. He's back.
Okay.
Philip, start with where you were talking about the boardwalk replacement.
Bill, are you there?
Yes. We can hear you.
We lost you at the comments on boardwalk replacement, Philip.
On boardwalk replacement. Start there if you can. Still not hearing
We're
him.
getting no sound from you, Mr. Robner. Your mic shows on, but no sound coming through.
Could we have him dial in?
I'm sorry.
Okay. We just heard something.
That was pretty much his most recent project to replace.
Should we suggest that he call in by phone?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and
Yeah,
clear.
you're back. Yep.
We could for the moment. Chris, if Philip can hear us, why don't you give him the phone number to call in on?
Okay,
So he
hold on.
Finish up his comments on the phone.
Mr. Rubner, if you can hear us, you can dial in toll free at 1-866-899-4679. And he's broken connection from the system here.
Okay. Well, hopefully we can get him back, but I'd like to go forward with the discussion of what he's proposing and what I have proposed. And that is that we put the charges for the work on the O&M agreement into our budget for this year with a proviso that it be removed from the master budget for the upcoming year.
Phil,
do
I'm
we have
back online. I'm on the phone. I'm on the phone, if that helps.
Yeah, that does help.
Okay, hopefully.
You want to finish your comments starting with at the preserve, the boardwalk replacement?
Said the manager has most recently demonstrated his commitment and expertise with respect to the project to replace the preserved bridges and is in the midst of overseeing the renovation and repair of the monuments at the entrance to the community. The master board is seeking your understanding of the rationale behind today's request and your approval. I'd be honored to answer your questions and thank you for your consideration. And that's it.
Okay. Do people have questions of Philip?
Not necessarily of Philip, but comments about the proposal, but I'll wait till we.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Okay.
Bob?
Okay. Well, I certainly respect the proposition that the principal services that we have transferred from Pelican to Gateway, those being security, landscaping, and ponds and wetlands, should come back to our community association because now we're running it. At the time that we left, it was good reason, and now it's definitely a good time to come back. When those particulars left, the Lennar or WCI HOA, they left as an entity. I, for one, I'm having a tough time struggling. What is the benefit for Pelican residents to partially shuffle the deck at this point in time? Since admittedly, by all accounts, this is a net zero to the homeowners. I don't see a particular reason why, and I'm saying that it's rushed at this particular time, but I don't feel that we're having enough time to really look at all of this, because I would like to look at it as an entity. And at what point in time that we do move forward with moving things back, I think we ought to do that on a lump sum. Some of my concerns are, we as a advisory committee we actually literally oversee every single nickel that the district spends on our behalf. I do not feel that we had that kind of oversight with Lennar and WCI, and I really didn't care as long as they were paying. But with the ability to look at all this oversight, we've also had the ability to kind of manage things. The district left on its own, in a lot of cases, went with different vendors than we chose. But yet we felt we had a good firm, foundation for why we made the choices we did in terms of the type of service that we got. We do not have that kind of oversight with anything that Castle does. And I don't really know yet if their community association is staffed up and manned and ready. I mean, they've got a hell of a lot of things and they've done a great job on what they've done, but this is a pretty big chunk to be taking back. So I guess I would like to defer it for at least another year until such time as the dust settles, so to speak. But I don't oversee any of the bills that come through Castle as a normal routine. Scott and I certainly talk a lot, and we discuss different things. And for those things that are in our budget, we can sense one way or the other. From an accounting perspective and the various protocols, I mean, and right sizing the master, I mean, no, we don't give any less scrutiny with what we do in the CDD. So I'm not sure why that is particularly germane, but it may be. I'm just giving you my own humble opinion. But the work that was done on the O&M agreement, there's an awful lot of things that got to be done as we move this stuff back to the community association. And I totally support it. I just don't think this is the time right now. And we're on our budget deadline. I would just defer this until a later time. That's my name.
Bob, I'd like to respond. This is Philip. With all due respect, the oversight of the O&M contract has not been very robust over the last number of years, as best I can tell. We typically have come in under budget. It's not a Castle arrangement at all. The O&M budget is between the master and the CDD. It happens to be executed by the master's manager. So the responsible party in this case is the master. There is some benefit at every level for the master to get a reduction in budget. I started this conversation and pretty well developed it back in July of last year. The fact that it wasn't picked up until this date was not a result of trying to surprise anybody or to present something at the last minute. This is simply an allocation of labor, and I don't think you're taking exception to the allocation of labor. What you're doing is saying that you don't see why we should make the change. And I'm telling you, from the master's perspective, we think it's an important change, and it's a way for us to move forward with a broader agenda of repatriating those expenses to the master in the next cycle. And we need to set up, a starting point, and this is the starting point that we've discussed with Phil and Ron. And with due respect to you, this isn't a relatively insignificant change. Just to kick it down the road another 12 months doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I
Bob,
heard you, Bill. I heard you
Yeah,
loud and
Bob, I would go further, and that is that we are not necessarily implying that we are going to move any of these things one way or another, but we're going to look at the possibility of whether we ought to do it or not. But that's almost separate from this charge. That the charge makes sense because it matches, as Philip says, revenues with expenses. In that we're not going to make a movement of anything unless it makes sense to do it. And we would look at that over the next year to see whether that makes sense to get it done.
I personally totally understand that. I'm completely with you. But I'm not, why do we need to do it now? Wait a year. I'm not arguing the need to do it. I just don't think this is the time to do it.
Hey, Bob, this is Ron. Let me make sure I understand what you just said. You don't think there's a need to start looking at what should go over, or?
Oh, absolutely, there's a need.
That's what I think Philip is saying. Let's start now to look at what should go over. Are you proposing that not happen till next year, or?
I'm just saying, don't move the dollars until we're ready to make a substantial change. Why would we do 10% of it? If we haven't saved any money in Pelican, what difference does it really make whether we pay it to the CDD or we pay it to the board? Right now, we're paying to the board. I'm okay with that. Eventually, everything's going to be paid to the board. This seems to be contrary to the flow we're trying to get to.
I'm a little confused by your comment about where we think we should be going. I really don't want to get into what needs to be moved back to the master and what shouldn't be moved. I'm going to be very, very blunt. I sent an email that you guys got a copy of that said basically that if the master would agree to review all the items that are in our budget to determine whether they should go back to the master or stay with us through the CDD, I would support this $93,000 movement. The other reason why I would support it, and I'm going to be very blunt, we've got the money. We got $900,000 sitting there of unassigned dollars. That's Pelican Preserve money. That's CDD money. They happen to manage it in their financial accounts, but it's Pelican Preserve money. Why the heck shouldn't we just do this?
Ron, we're not talking about that 900,000 unassigned.
We're talking about 93,000.
No, whatever the money is. This is not a change in dollars. The dollars are currently being collected. Whether it's $10 that currently pay to the community association, all we're going to do is ask the $10 to be paid to the CDD. It's the same thing. But the big picture is eventually everything in the CDD comes here. This is running contrary to that. In my own puny little mind, I mean, I'm just expressing my opinion. Everybody's got their own. I just don't see a value to changing this at this point in time. We got a lot of crap on our plate. Certainly the Master Association has a lot. Let's give it a more deliberative, thoughtful process and make it a major move when we make it. And I fully
Bob,
everything coming back.
Bob, I respect your opinion, but I can tell you this right now, as the treasurer of the Master, I'm busting every every expense that I have to try to figure out how to reduce the master fees. Now, $40 doesn't sound like a whole lot of money to you, and like you said, the net effect is zero. I don't know why we're having an argument. If the master determines that this is something to the benefit of the master, and we've had this discussion with a number of your board members, we've done a whole lot of homework to try to do it. There's not a lot of deliberation. The deliberation needs to occur over the next 6 or 8 months to try to figure out if we can move an even bigger portion of this back over to the master and what benefit that would be to the association.
Well, if you're suggesting.
Wait a minute, let me finish. Please let me finish. Let me finish just my thought. My experience for the last 10 months in dealing with the CDD and not the CDD specifically, but the O&M agreement, is that there's very, very little oversight that's existed. And one could make a point that perhaps there's no incentive for or no obligation on the part of the master to have any oversight either. And that leaves the entire contract under the purview pretty much of the manager. So from a fiduciary standpoint, if we're going to begin this process of evaluating these expenses, let's put a little more money into the master. It's an incidental amount of money as a means to help move the agenda for a much bigger move a year from now.
Okay, at this point, what I'd like to do is, I think we've heard Bob's position on this.
Bill, I'd like a chance to answer back. And again,
Yeah, okay.
I don't know why this is adversarial. I didn't think it was. I thought it was a discussion. And Phil, you made your pitch. You made your pitch, and then, okay, your pitch is done, and now we are discussing. That's my own humble opinion. But what you just told me was, you want to take this out of the master money, but you're not going to make a reduction in the cost. You're going to use it some other way. That's what I think I just heard you say.
I did not say that, Bob. I did not say that.
I told you what I thought you said. Okay. Then where does the master gain from this?
Master gains a $40 reduction per unit across the board in its assessment.
But that's a
That's what the
dishonest
master
way to
gains.
tell our members, because it really is not a reduction. We're just transferring that cost over to the CDD.
Bob, respectfully, understand this. The master budget is under attack from a lot more people than the CDD budget. A $40 reduction is a win for the master. A $40 increase to the CDD is incidental, and nobody's ever going to even know it exists.
Well,
so
I would
just look at the number of people who come to a master meeting to talk about budget matters, and the number of people who come to a CDD meeting to talk about budget matters. It's an optics thing more than anything else.
Okay, that I would agree with.
Me too. And I believe that this, I mean, I'm going to be a little more blunt than Ron. I think that this whole proposal is so that the master can come back and say, we saved you $400 or $40 a month on your fees, or $40 a quarter or a year or whatever. But then the CDD is still going to charge the same amount. So everybody's going to be bitching about the taxes that they have to pay as opposed to their HOA fees.
Well, and I certainly concur, and you said it better than I could. But here's the other thing I'll put in front of the PPAC board is, historically, I agree exactly what Philip said. Nobody over there ever really pays a whole lot of attention to what we do. But believe me, this year is going to be very different, because in the last 24 months, the Gateway Board has committed the communities over there to millions and millions of dollars in lake bank replenishment. And now they're going to be doing a roundabout and some more money on that. And they're looking at a methodology assessment. This is going to be a very, very controversial year. So yeah, in the past, Philip, I totally agree with that, but this ain't a typical year.
Well, Bob, I would submit that it's a big deal for Gateway, but not a big deal for Pelican Preserve.
Only because we haven't seen how the impact is, Phil. You and I know, there's going to be a lot of ruckus over everything. Well, again, it ain't personal. I gave you my opinion. I will be quiet.
Okay, let's get other people. Teresa, do you have more to say on this? And then I'd like to get other people's opinion.
That's just my opinion.
Okay, others. John?
I think it might be a good idea to bring it over to PPAC. I got to agree with Philip's presentation. If we are really going to reduce the quote fee, $45, everybody at Pelican will see that. It could come over to our budget without any major issue, I think.
Joe, where do you come out? Joe?
No, we can't hear you.
Joe? I'm not hearing you.
His mic's on. I don't hear him though. Come in, Joe.
Can you try turning up the volume?
That doesn't work. If Joe can't be heard, it happened to me a couple of times. Just have him
Glenn?
phase out and reconnect with the meeting.
Oh, looks like he's gonna call in.
That creates that.
He's calling.
Yes. Well, being new to the board, I certainly don't see the work you've put into this prior, especially Phil and Phil yourself. And I believe that a $40 reduction would be a big win for the master. And most people with cash flow, $40 in one pocket, 40 out the other, it's not going to be that big an issue to them, especially, being reflected on their tax bill. But in turn, I got to support that we should do this at the present time.
Did Joe get dialed in?
This joint press release that we're going to have, is it going to explain to the membership that there's a zero net sum in there, that whatever they're making in their, whatever they're gaining in their $40 reduction of HOA fees is going to be reflected in their taxes?
Yes. I think we have to communicate that, Teresa. And we have generally, in quite a number of years, sent out letters about what we've done as a PPAC to explain any increases that have occurred. And we would have to combine that with explaining this situation. I think there's no doubt about it. We'd have to come up with joint communication.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, the phone works.
Okay. Joe, your thoughts on that?
I've been listening to everything.
Yep.
And
what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I kind of side with Bob. I think it's a fast decision. My concern is that we're going to have tax increases coming our way from the CDD. We don't know what we're going to end up with because they haven't even had their meetings to fully decide. There's a lot of things that are going to affect us coming down the pike. And I think if it's a wash, I think if there's conversation that's going to take place and the master is going to be discussing it and not making a decision for quite a while, I don't think there's a rush for PPAC to make a real quick decision.
Hey, Joe.
Right.
Yes. You've got to approve your budget
you've got to approve your budget well in advance of the master. I can't accept the delay. I mean, the master says it'll do what it'll do. It'll do exactly what it says it'll do. So it's not a matter of approval or not approval. It's not. We're not playing a game here.
I didn't say we were playing the game, Phil. I'm just concerned that this pops up at the last minute for us to put our budget together. And being more conservative, I think it's something we should explore and review before we make a change. I don't see. I know the one difference is going to be if it goes to the CDD, individual homeowners will be paying more money than folks that live in condos and duplexes. And I see that as a potential growth on a yearly basis as the percentage of taxes go up, the percentage that single family homeowners will be paying will go up. Now, it's not a significant amount of money, but it does make a difference between each person. Right now, there's total equality between each door. And once it transfers to the CDD, from what I understand from our last meeting, that changes. It becomes more of a burden for single family units than it does for multifamily units. So I just think we need to discuss this and understand fully what's going on. I appreciate your explanation, but I'd just be more conservative in this and want to give it some more thought.
Joe, just a comment that the amount of that change that will occur on single family versus multifamily, this is a very small part.
I think it was like $4, Bill. Now that's this year. What's it next year and the following year? And it will, I calculate, get bigger on a yearly basis.
Okay. What I'd like to do is I'd like to put a motion on the floor that we submit our budget, this budget, which is the O&M budget for next year, in the amount of $1,426,883 plus $93,411.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, so let's go around. I'd like to go around to each person and get their discussion.
Okay, I'll go in the order of the agenda. Mr. DePonte?
I think you've already heard enough from me on this subject. I think we should support it. I think over the years, we're talking about just this one year, and this year will be significant because we collectively will decide some things will go back to the master and these numbers will go down next year. So I support it.
Okay, Mr. Grega?
I'm in
Comments?
favor. Yes.
Okay, Ms. Phillips?
I'm opposed.
Okay, Joe?
Right now, we're just getting comments. We haven't
Yes,
actually
Mr.
taken a
Oh,
vote.
okay.
Yeah,
Well,
Ms. Phillips, any comments?
my opinion hasn't changed at all from what I said earlier. I believe that it's because the master does not want to get the blowback for any increase in dues or not having a decrease. And they feel like the best way to handle that is to hand this money off to the CDD.
Okay,
I
comments?
support that.
Yeah, Joe, comments from you?
No, I support that position
Okay, and Mr.
at this point in time.
Can you put up Exhibit C, Chris? The next
Yes.
tab, please. On your screen. There you go. Now, Phil, you put this together. We looked at it, and
Yep.
I agree. We should add the 93,411 to the 1.4, And I think this will be a win for us who live in Pelican Preserve.
I have already made my support known. So the motion is that our preliminary budget number for the HOA agreement to the CDD be $1,520,294. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second the motion.
So we have a motion and a second. I'll call for the vote. Mr. Measy,
Aye.
Mr. Geppert,
Opposed.
okay. Mr. DePonte,
Aye.
Mr. Grega,
Aye.
Ms. Phillips,
Nay.
Mr. Schofield,
Nay.
okay, Mr. Sikorsky,
Aye.
Okay.
so I'm showing a 4-3 in opposition.
Yep. Okay.
So that motion fails by a vote of 4-3.
No,
It passed.
No, it passes.
it passed.
Oh,
It
passed.
passed by 4-3.
It passed the
Yeah.
first.
Passed by
Nice try,
4-3.
Chris.
No, I had the first one wrong.
That sounds
Where do
like
you
a
live?
power tally.
Chicago.
Vote early, vote often.
So Glenn, that's the number that you need to pass on to Stephen. Or Chris, will you do that?
Yes, I'll pass that on. That's the $1,426,883 plus the $93,000 figure.
Right, 93,411. Okay, let's move
Thank
on
you.
to the next item. Geppert's going to be on my back for having too long a meeting.
Oh, no, I like our meetings.
Phil
Sorry.
Rogner,
Okay.
thank you for your presentation.
Yep.
Philip, thank you.
Phil Rogner, thanks for your presentation.
Okay,
You might have jumped off.
okay. Can we get back to the agenda?
We're on item 5, right? Cypress Grove Golf Course?
Cypress Grove Golf Cart Crossing.
Yep. Ron?
Okay, just a couple of quick things. At the last meeting, the board asked me to get back to Tony Pierce to get his opinion as to whether we would be creating a potential liability if we change the golf cart crossing to Cypress, on Cypress Grove, either to Azure or to Solera. I had several emails and long conversation with Tony, and he agreed that there is no issue, liability issue with doing that. In fact, Chris, maybe you need to conform. I asked you by email, but I never got a response. Did the task authorization get approved?
The task authorization was approved at the board meeting. There were some legal comments that Danny was making edits to that he had gotten from Tony, and he's supposed to be sending over the final for signature. And I expect it today.
Yeah,
Okay.
Ron, didn't you get my summary of the meeting? I sent one out.
Well, yeah, but it wasn't clear whether they approved it because there was that proviso about some legal comments needed to be added. So I wasn't clear what those legal
Okay.
comments were.
Well, that's on me. I thought I communicated it. Okay.
No, I appreciate what you did. I just wanted to be absolutely certain.
Okay.
Okay, so having said that, I did have a conversation or email conversations, if you will, with Ian Coleman as to whether they have finished their legal review. He indicated that he had not as yet gotten feedback from his bosses over in Lennar. I did pass on some additional information. I made clear about summary. In fact, John, I'm pretty sure I gave you a copy of that, but John's position that the existing crossing is basically safe, but if we change the crossing, we create other issues because of the golf club's golf carts traveling down Cypress Grove. So he got that information. John, I'm not sure if you've spoken to him or any of the other managers there. I know you spoke to David, but they're looking at that. They're looking. You had made a recommendation to put a mirror, I guess it was, at the existing crossing to make it a little bit safer. They're looking at that, and I still haven't gotten any specific feedback one way or the other. Ian said we'll be getting something soon. I'm not exactly sure when that is, but we'll have to see. Now that the task authorization has been approved, Scott, if you can get together with Danny and work out a schedule, because I know you've got some contractors sitting around waiting, for the crossing at Trieste, which is the most important thing. You want that to be moving along. The stop signs at Viadana and the rumble strips. Really want to get moving on that rumble strip idea as well. Now, the Cypress Grove thing may be delayed or changed or eliminated. Not sure at this point. All depends on what Ian comes back with. And basically, that's it from us.
All right,
I have a question.
I have a couple of
about
comments.
the golf court crossing.
Go ahead.
We keep saying we're going to change it. Does that mean we're taking away the one that currently exists, or are we going to have two?
Well, yeah, that's one of the things we need to look at. I know John is of the opinion we need to keep the existing one, period. Okay. Again, I haven't gotten feedback from Ian. There may be some issues with their equipment and some of their patrolling of the golf course that they would like to keep the existing path open. So at this point, I think we'll leave the existing path open. I don't know what impact that has overall. I still know, 80, 90% of the drivers cross over at Azura. So I don't think it makes a difference if we keep that open, if we use that crossing. If we want to go consider the Solera crossing, that's a different concern, because obviously a certain number of the drivers are going to continue even using Azura or the official crossing, even if we create the Solera one. So I don't know, that could be an issue.
All right, can I make some comments, please?
I was under the impression that we were going to keep the existing one, because when you're going from Heron 1 to Heron 2, that's the crossing that you'll use. But adding the other one, whether it be at Solera or Azura, would be an additional one. And the way I look at it, if we keep both of them, that would resolve Mr. Grega's concerns about having the club carts on the road, because they could just go forward the way they're supposed to do right now and cross over at that crossing in between Heron 1 and Heron 2. But when you're coming off of Ibis 8 and going to Ibis 9, that's when it's easier to cross over at Azura. And I mean, I'm all in favor, if we do it, to keep it at Azura. But and the reason is because I think if we don't block off that cart path, everybody's going to do it anyway, even if we put the crossing across Solera. But I also was thinking, people do it now, and there's no golf crossing sign there. So if they continue to do it and we don't make a formal golf cart crossing sign, it's not like we'll be under any liability, because they take it upon themselves when they cross there.
Let me answer a couple of things. I think we're in 100% agreement. We're not proposing to close the existing official path. Okay. Currently from Heron 1 to Heron 2, there's no, I don't think there's a need to mess with that whatsoever. I think your point's well taken with, if we do Solera, yeah, a certain number of people are going to continue using the Azora crossing or the present official one. I basically support Azora. And yes, you're right. If we do nothing other than perhaps adding a mirror to the existing official crossing, everybody's going to do what they're doing now. And
Can I make comments?
we could just, forget it and move on to another more important project.
Can I make some comments? Ron, from a safety standpoint, there is not a safety issue crossing from IBIS 8 to IBIS 9.
Can I respond? I'm sorry.
Well, no, I'd like to finish. I think from all the calculations, perception, yes, it may look like there's an issue, but there is no issue. And if you put a mirror up, you get a much bigger visual presentation for the golf carts to see any cars. A car will be able to stop even if it's going 30 or 35 miles per hour. Now, if my calculations are wrong, I asked you to have Tetra Tech check them. I don't know if they did. The other issue is you're going to have to put if you change the crossing, you have 6 signs up now. How many extra signs are you going to be putting up? And why spend the money if we do not have a safety issue at this point?
You done, John?
Yes. I can have other comments, but I don't feel there's a safety issue. And unless somebody can show that my calculations are incorrect, why change?
All right, a couple of quick, I really would prefer not getting into whether your calculations are right or wrong.
It's a simple,
excuse me, John.
Let's find out if I'm right or wrong.
Let me finish. Let me finish, okay? I did give you a link to a website that indicated a different conclusion in terms of the number of feet. I'm not arguing whether it's safe or not safe. I'm not arguing that at all. What I'm arguing is since that crossing was created from IBIS 8 to IBIS 9, the drivers of the golf carts have decided, 80 to 90% of them, to cross at Azora. You can argue that they shouldn't do that. They should go the existing one. I can't argue against that. I'm telling you, that's what they actually are doing. My whole purpose here was since they are doing it, let's make that crossing a bit safer than it is now. If don't want to do that, fine. I'm done.
Then let's.
So Ron, are you saying to keep the existing one open and then also have crossing across the street at the intersection?
The existing crossing, the official existing crossing, I'm not proposing changing that crossing other than perhaps adding a mirror as John has suggested.
Yeah.
What I am saying is most golf cart drivers cross Azora today. And the whole purpose of this entire discussion and the 6 or 7 months that I've spent on this was to try to make that crossing safer. If it's decided that we don't want to do that, and we can argue till the cows come home as to which one is safer and which one is not, that's fine. We can just drop it. We'll save a couple of bucks and we'll just leave it the way it is because the golf cart drivers will do what they do. Whether that's moving to the official one if we put a mirror or stay with the Azora one.
Ron,
I'm not in favor of having two different ones.
Ron said he gave me a different website. Even that website confirmed that the existing crossing is safe. Now, I think you're going to do it correctly to make a new crossing, you're going to be spending a lot of money. And I don't think it's worth it if you have an existing safe crossing. If a lot of people do it, they're doing it with their own golf carts, which are street ready. The golf club carts are not street ready. Ask
All right.
David or anybody at the club. They have no brake lights. They have no turn signals. If you make that an official crossing and they start crossing there, they're going to be in the traffic lane. In my emails, I said 13 miles per hour. It's 12 and a half. That is the exact maximum speed of a golf cart itself. As a result of that, they're coming to a complete stop, making a right-hand turn. It is less safe to do that. If you put a crossing there, you're going to have golf carts from the club going on the road where they officially should not be doing. They're not even allowed in the parking lot.
I would like to suggest, Ron, I would like to suggest that you carry all of this back once more to the SSWG, see whether they want to continue pursuing it or not.
Phil, let me make a comment. I suspect the SSWG will not change their recommendation. Okay? We can sit here for the next 2 hours. Please let me finish. We can sit here for the next 2 hours arguing whether John's right, whether Ron's right, whether the drivers are wrong, whether the golf carts are safe. It's not going to make much difference in our, at least opinion of a few people. But I will be more than happy, and I already have. I forwarded John's, in fact, John did it. I asked John to forward all of his comments to the SSWG directly, which he has done, for them collectively to take another look at it. So that's already in the works. We're planning on meeting hopefully next week. And before the next meeting, I should have whatever the SSWG has decided to recommend.
Can I go to your meeting if that's allowed?
I guess the answer is if you don't tell anybody, because there are rules. There are rules. If you would like to come to the meeting, I would be more than happy to step out and have you talk to the SSWG directly without me there, so that we don't get any violations of sunshine laws or whatever. I don't have any problem, John.
All right. Either way, Phil, PPAC, we are going to be making this decision if Ron wants to do it. The club is not. So now all the liability of the golf carts will fall on PPAC if there is an accident where the existing crossing, there have been 0 accidents, and I do not think it's a safety issue. So are we willing, is our insurance willing to accept that liability on a golf cart that is not street ready, going the total distance of the proposed new crossing?
Well,
Unfortunately, John, what you're saying is somewhat incorrect. The club has not made a decision as to whether they support the change or not. You may think they have not told me that. You may be absolutely correct. And I've already told Ian Coleman that there are going to be no changes unless the club supports the change. This is not a dictatorship, okay? And I really don't want to go back to whether golf carts from the club are safe or not. They're allowed on our roads based on the criteria that the CDD resolution created. You can argue that it was wrong and they shouldn't have done it. I really don't want to talk about that. I'm done.
The CDD resolution did not take into account of 0 brake lights and turn signals.
It does not require brake lights to be existing on golf carts driving our community, period. It does not require it. You may argue they should, but it does not require.
Can I throw my 2 cents in here? we could go either way. I have a real issue having two golf cart crossings within about 100 feet of each other. That's going to be totally confusing to the 80% of the community that are driving cars on that road. I think you can't have two of them that close together.
Several communities do.
Barbie,
I said several communities do.
do they?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's kind of confusing. Ron, I have another question. The map that the diagram you showed us showed a golf cart crossing going not straight across the intersection, but cutting across from one corner over to another corner. Is that still what you're thinking about?
I think if you're referring to the Azura crossing.
Yes, I am.
That chart really just showed what golf carts are doing presently. If we ended up drawing a golf cart sign, striping across that, I think we would do it more in line with something close to a 90-degree coming across.
I think the safest way, I think safety-wise, you'd want to just go straight across like you would if you were a car going across. If you're doing the other thing, you're now creating an issue where somebody has to be maybe looking back when they're going through the intersection again.
You're basically correct. The key would be if you're in a golf cart, if you go directly across, you then have to make a 90-degree turn to get into that lane where the golf carts should be traveling. Okay.
Yep.
So we may offset that a little bit to if we end up doing it to allow for that. Certainly, we would not have it going directly into the pedestrian crossing. That we would not do.
Yeah. Well, if this works, I'd want a 90-degree. And let the golf carts make a complete 90-degree left-hand turn when they're getting back onto the road, because going across, you're creating almost a similar situation to what we're paying to fix up at the entrance to Pelican Preserve, where people have to keep looking back. I think personally, after listening to all these arguments, I just kind of let things just go the way they are, and those golf carts that cross at Azura cross, and the other ones go where the golf cart crossing is.
Can others hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
because I got cut out. Okay. Yeah, let's let things cool off and do this at our next meeting. Next
Okay.
agenda. What's the next agenda item, please?
Scott still on?
Yes, I'm
Association
still
manager
on.
report.
Actually, the next one is Bob Gephardt's.
Bob was on, I'm here.
Yep. You're up, Bob.
Okay,
That's that light post issue.
I'll try and keep mine brief. Okay, first, an update on the Lennar repairs that are 39, 51, 55, 57, and 58 for aeration. All of these ponds are in Prato and Pistoia. One of them is in Palazzo because they damaged that. It had been up and running. So we had another meeting this morning with Solitude Lake Management, which is one of our people, Community Environmental Service, who's our Lennar, and myself, and we walked again and measured the distance on every repair that had to be made. Generally speaking, the repairs fall into the category that Lennar's original contractor did not install the electrical conduit and cable to code from the meter to the installation of our cabinets lakeside. These are the ones that I've mentioned in the past where they ran extension cords across lawns, I mean, they plugged them into our neighbors' houses, etc. The source of friction with Lennar has been the repair cost. You know, they like to do everything on the cheap. But we have finally consensed with them that we are going to use Southern States Electrical, who is the recommendation of Solitude and who has done all of the installations that Pelican has done on our own. So the cost of this is $35,000. I am expecting, I'm always optimistic, that Lennar will approve that in the next 10 days. If they do that, then that takes care of all of Lennar's issues relative to aeration in Pelican, and we'll never hear about it again. So that's the first item. The second item is that once that is done, then I'll be coming to you guys to upgrade these installations. And by that, I mean the number of diffusers, compressors, and the cabinets that are currently on the pond. And to that end, I sent everybody out a copy of a letter, and it should be a package in our package, with costs for Solitude to upgrade some other ponds that didn't have electrical problems. So this letter is kind of lengthy. Did everybody see it? It's titled Ponds 45 to 52.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you've read that thing, you'll understand the particulars, but I am now going to make a motion that PPAC approve the expenditures of not to exceed $36,000 to upgrade the following ponds: aeration: 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, and 52.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay,
Okay,
John
we've got
seconds.
a motion and a second. Any discussion?
We do have the funds within our current budget to cover this.
Okay, any other comments from board members? With that, I'll call the vote. Mr. Measy,
Aye.
Mr. Geppert,
Aye.
Mr. DePonte,
Aye.
Mr. Grega,
Aye.
Ms. Phillips,
We didn't hear you, Teresa.
Or to raise her hand.
Okay,
Aye.
okay, Mr. Schofield,
Aye.
okay, and Mr. Sikorsky.
Aye.
okay.
Okay, motion passes 7-0.
Okay, the second item on that same letter is for some diffuser replacements on ponds 40, 41, 42, and 43 to the tune of $4,590. And Chris, I have that in the normal budget. I'm just, if I need a motion, I'll be happy to make it, that we approve that also. I don't know where I break off between regular business and new business, but do we need a motion, or should we have a motion to approve that?
I think
Why don't
we'll
you go
ahead.
ahead, Bob? Make the motion, and then we'll be sure we did it right.
Okay. I make a motion to replace the diffusers in ponds 40, 41, 42, and 43 at a cost not to exceed $4,600.
Okay.
I'll second it. Glenn.
Got a
Seconded
motion
by-
and a second for the diffuser replacement. I'll call the vote. Mr. Measy,
Aye.
Mr. Geppert,
Aye.
Mr. DePonte,
Aye.
Mr. Grega,
Aye.
Ms. Phillips,
Aye.
Mr. Schofield,
Aye.
Mr. Sikorsky.
Aye.
Motion for diffusers passes 7-0.
Okay. And
Okay.
that's something, Chris, you can approve that yourself, right?
Yes, I'll issue a purchase order for it tomorrow.
Okay.
All right, the next is the issue of downspouts. We are transitioning at this time from Carina to Matarita. And the Matarita has turned into a much greater problem of understanding the aeration or the downspout installation as it relates to what was applicable in the permit criteria manual at the time that WCI Lennar got their approvals. And here is the issue. We had a transitory period between the construction of Matarita 1 where nothing in the permit criteria manual had changed. So they could do their typical what they did in Carina, which was nothing for downspouts. But in Matarita 2, which comprises 3 construction phases, and you got to make sure you use the right terminology. In Matarita 2, Matarita 3, and Matarita 4 construction, not the same as HOAs, the requirements of Lennar varied literally street by street. So we are currently in the process, Ponds, of understanding what the changes were street by street, and Tetra Tech is supposed to be answering that. It's apparently it's not as clean as we thought it might be, but I guess maybe it will be when we see it. But depending on how that shakes out, it significantly impacts our cost structure. For Matarita 1, where they had no requirements, Lennar had no requirements, we're going to do the same thing there we did everywhere else in the community. For those homes that are on a pond, we're going to install rear yard drainage if they have gutters and mid-house drainage. And we do nothing in the front. We will continue that all through Matarita 1. And we have some cost estimates for that right now. And I probably should look at that. I'll come back to that at the end of it, because I'm going to make a motion that we approve Matarita 1 not to exceed. For Matarita 2, I will be coming to you in June to explain to you what our proposal is for the balance of Matarita 2, Prado, and Pistoia. But very, very simply, Prado and Pistoia all have rear yard drainage. They do not have mid yard. And for those of you that are new in the PPAC, we did everything we possibly could to encourage Lennar to install them in mid yard, and even offered to pay them $600 a dwelling to do it. And they kept promising us they would do it, but they never did. Typical Lennar. But we have the money, and we will continue to retrofit all of those homes as we go forward. The only negative on the homes in Matarita 2, Prado, and Pistoia is we have a standard of double wall construction for the underground piping, 6 inches. Lennar put in 5-inch single wall. It's not as robust, but it's all relatively new. They should be good for at least about 15 years. So we made a decision with our engineers that we didn't think it was prudent to pull out all this newly constructed single wall piping. So we're going to leave it as it is, but we are going to put in the proper size bubble ups, because Lennar has the little 3-inch circles and the grass just grows all over them and hides them. We're going to put in the either 9 or 12-inch that we have in the rest of the community. Mostly we have 12-inch. As a further enhancement, we think we're going to line the outside with 3 or 4 inches of concrete, or border the outside, I should say, again, to prevent the incursion of weeds and growth, and to make the boxes more serviceable. So I'll be bringing all that up again in June. Secondly, on the downspouts, we had an engineering survey of Prado and Pistoia where Lennar did not meet the minimum obligations that they have, and we have a list of those houses, and we've been giving that list to Lennar for over a year, and they have taken no action whatsoever. In the course of today's meeting about the repair problems, I took Aaron Milosevic out there and showed him what we are going to be asking Lennar to fix in the future. I didn't want to confuse him with what he's doing with aeration, but I told him as soon as that's behind us and done, now I'm going to start forcing you guys to do what you should have done to begin with. So, and we are in the process of doing surveys in Matarita. Once we define which requirement was street by street, we'll be developing a list for that. I mentioned earlier that the aeration electrical cost, we have started that survey, as I said in the last meeting, so we know exactly what P&L is billing us for every single meter we have in the community. And I kind of like to throw it out to PPAC because I really think that should be done for everything electrical in our community. I mean, we ought to know what we're paying for monument lighting, what we're paying for street lights, just everything that we pay that bill. I don't want to do it. I got more than enough on my plate. But if one of you guys or gals are looking for something, this would be a very ripe field for us to look into. And hearing nobody jump up, I will talk about the thalia treatment in the at the end of the boardwalk in Pelican Preserve. We have been working on that very slowly but very diligently. And I don't know if anybody's been out there recently now that the water's way down, but the birds are returning to roost and they coming in every night, and it's really looking very good. So it's appropriate right now, since we're going to refurbish that boardwalk sometime this year, that people may be using it again, our residents, and that if they choose to do that, we could get back to what it was 10 years ago, where that was a gathering place every night to take pictures and look at the birds and things. So I'll just throw that out there. If you get out there and you look, you'll see a big difference than what it used to be in the years past. And that's all I have, but I will be coming back for the cost of Matarita 1 later on in the meeting, for Matarita Run downspouts.
Bob, are these things in, what's in the budget and what's not? I mean,
everything is in the budget. We will not exceed the budget, or remember we have that $375,000 carryover?
yeah.
And all of this is planned in there, that we never go through everything. We've been at this for 3 years, and we'll probably be at it for at least 2 more.
Okay, thank you.
And
Any
did I
questions,
mention
Bob?
at the last meeting, did I mention that we are going to get aeration for ponds 13, which is the golf driving range, and pond 1 over in Colonial? I just want to make sure I've told everybody that that's going to be done. It'll be 140,000, and we're getting that out of the bond fund. So that's no cost to us. That's just money that Lennar can't claim when we're all done with the bond fund.
Any questions of Bob? Okay. On to the next item. Scott.
Anybody want to take a break? No? Okay.
No,
Let's-
thank you.
Let's
Okay.
continue.
Okay, Bob, quick question for you. Did you have a picture of that light post in that owner's driveway? Did you cover that?
I covered it here in the past, but since we got a favorable response on it,
Okay.
I didn't bring it up. But by all means, I covered with them. I mean,
Okay. All right.
When you say favorable response, Bob, is
Yes.
Lennar going to do something about it?
Well, the way I read it, it was favorably. There's the photo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got something this week said that the Prieto Pistoia Turnover Committee group has gotten a positive response out of Lennar. So
Okay.
you can all see that light post that's in that poor guy's driveway, and it really wasn't having to do with ponds or but this guy, the homeowner, didn't have anybody to advocate for him. And I had spoken before to Phil in the tennis court to mention that one time. But now we've got some people that are pushing it again. So
Okay. Thank you.
It looks
Okay.
a good mount for a basketball net.
yeah, but you'll hit it, Joe. It's not a good match.
Okay, Scott,
All right.
move on.
If we want to go to that page in the agenda, I'm going to back into that boardwalk RFP page, but we can pull it up. Thank you. Wanted to update you on all the projects real quickly. The trellises, the material has been shipped. We're supposed to receive it this week. So the trellis installation will start either the first or the middle of next week. And that's for all the features that are up front near Tree Line and Pelican Preserve Boulevard. What we did find out when we did the demo is at the top of the pedestals that support the trellises were not sealed. So what that causes is that when it rains, the water sits on the porous cinder block and drains down through the pillar and delaminates the stucco on the individual pillars. So we're going to be sealing that next week too, and that is part of the painting project. So both of those will start next week. The painting of the wall and the gate monuments and the gatehouse itself will begin the week after that. As I mentioned earlier, the FPL LED conversion within the neighborhoods will begin mid to late June. The sidewalk project, that is on hold until the contractor returns to work and is able to get us on the schedule. Currently, their employees are not working. So I just have to wait on the vendor. And that's really just based on the coronavirus. And then the last bit of a report is I'm doing Danielle's report on the traffic counts through the front gate. In April, we did a total of 42,257 vehicles through the main gatehouse, which actually equals a count that we did back in May of 2018. So the traffic has dropped tremendously, and we haven't seen a traffic count that low for 2 years. As far as what you see in front of you on the screen, we did put out the bid for the boardwalk. There were 6 companies. 3 of those companies do large projects, meaning they do municipal projects within parks, meaning what we have is the boardwalk. We did run into some challenges with putting this out to bid because of the size and scope of the work. It is actually 18,000 linear feet of decking. To put that in perspective, if you have a 10 by 10 room in your house, a small bedroom, that would equal about 500 of those rooms is what makes up the linear footage on that footprint of the boardwalk. Stokes Marine, doing our bridges and working the property. In the past, they've been out here on 5 different occasions, but I did receive their hard bid of $1,040,960. That is $16,000 less than their budgetary proposal that they gave us for budgeting purposes. Both Hawley Construction and Williams Brothers did bid on our bridges. The challenge is with the both of them is they have not met the deadline, although they are working through some particulars that I've sent back to them. Either the specs were not correct based on the engineering drawing, or they were using the wrong materials. So I'm waiting for their final estimates. They did admit that they have not done a project of this size or scope. The only other 2 companies that have done a project of this size is Stemic Marine and Honk Marine, and both of them declined to submit a proposal. So most likely, I would recommend to continue moving ahead with Stokes Marine. I believe we were happy with their work on the bridges. They stood behind their work and made any other additional adjustments to the bridges that we felt were necessary along with the engineer. My concern with both Hawley and Williams Brothers right now is I'm going through their proposals, and with Hawley, I mean, it's as simple as speccing the correct material. If you're all aware, the curbing on the bridges is a 6x6 piece of lumber that is marine grade. And when they gave me their proposal, they did a 4x4. the difference in cost between the two specs of that equipment or that lumber was $40,000. So I am running into a few challenges with these smaller companies, but we do need to have 3 proposals for this project because of the size and scope, and of course the cost. The next page represents the aerial. If you could go to the next, oh, no, it's the one back. Ah, there it is. This is going to represents a staging area. We anticipate that this will take us 3 months to do. The red broken lines and the red barriers represent the areas of the preserve we will have to close during the construction. The dotted red lines represents how the deliveries of materials will be made into the preserve for staging onto the boardwalk. The two green areas represents where the materials are going to be staged and dropped off at. Now, the one area, that's not a problem because it's right next to where we did the staging for bridge number 4. But the other side of the boardwalk is basically in Sienna's backyard.
Excuse me, Scott, there you go.
Yes. You had a question, Ron?
No, I'm just going to ask Chris to move the chart up, and he did it already. Thanks.
Oh, okay. Now, the area in Sienna, we are going to have to contact their master board to give us permission to use that area that is marked on the map. It's right above the last or the first building as you go into Sienna, right below the lake. We're going to need that to stage that other side of the boardwalk because of the cart path and the preserve itself. We have no other area on that side. Hopefully we can get there okay to do that. That could save us $100,000 on labor. So this proposal from Stokes includes us being able to secure that area. And of course, we would repair any damage to the turf that is done. But it's a common area for Sienna. So that's where we have our proposal right now. I'm hoping to get this over to you to take a look at everything within the next 2 weeks once I hear from the other 2 vendors. You already are aware of my concerns with the other 2 vendors about their size, the scope of work they've done in other properties in the past. And right now, Stokes Marine is the only one that can do this size of project that I'm aware of. So,
Scott, did the 2 companies that did not bid give you any reason why they weren't interested?
The size of the project and the timing. They were not
big
interested.
Too small?
Oh, no. I mean, STEMEC Marine actually would prefer to stay in their little niche market of doing seawalls and waterfront boardwalks. If we were a waterfront boardwalk, they could use their barge. They have barges and equipment in place that they'd have to put in mothballs while they did our project. So they didn't see that there was a cost benefit there for them.
Okay. It's not an issue that we have then.
No.
Okay.
Not
Thank
our issue.
you.
It's they're willing to take on a project of this magnitude at this point in time.
Yeah, I'd be hesitant to use them then if they were willing. Okay, thank you.
Well, it'd be great to at least get a proposal from them so I could compare apples to apples, but you know, I understand they're not going to waste their time if they're not going to take on the project.
Scott,
Yes,
this is Ron. The staging area near Sienna,
yes.
how long would that be required?
A minimum of 2 months.
And what would you expect the starting date to be?
Well, that's based on permitting. And as we are aware, it took 4.5 months to do the permitting for the bridges. We do know
So-
that if we go with Stokes Marine, we do know the process. And I think we won't have to go back to the drawing board based on what the building department wanted us to change. We basically have all that dialed in. So we're looking at a start date. If we got this approved by PPAC at the next meeting, we're looking at a starting around September.
Yeah, I can see Sienna having a real issue.
Well,
with having
and
a
we
staging area
don't
there
know.
between September and October and perhaps November.
Well, and there again, that's why we need to have a discussion with them.
Mhm.
Give them an incentive.
Any incentives?
Let's not do that until they tell us no.
Well, that's agreed, but if they tell us no, figure out some little incentive for them.
Okay.
What exactly will it cause people in Sienna to have to do?
They don't have to do anything, but what's going to be there during the demolition is a dumpster. So there'll be a dumpster out there for about 6 weeks.
Hmm.
And then the
So
rest of the time, once the demo's done, then they're going to have stacks of lumber back there.
Right. So it's aesthetic. It's not it's not going to be a convenience problem.
Correct. All
Okay.
aesthetics for that one building.
Hmm.
Functionality wise, the Sienna residents will still be able to use the exterior path to go up to the town center.
That is correct.
Okay.
Scott, one question on the map. I'm looking at the upper left red zone where the current second exit out of the preserve is. That's going to be a staging area?
Where the green area is, that's right next to Bridge 4, yes. Are you talking about the boulevard?
Pelican Preserve Boulevard.
Oh, that's going to be an area that you're not going to be able to access because at the end of that is going to be material.
Okay.
But it's not going to be actually on. It's not necessarily as much material as it is where the trucks are going to be parked for Stokes Marine. Their labor trucks, their material and equipment.
Well, maybe when they're all done, we can get them to put some macadam on it and save us $5,200. That's where the rough area is.
Well, you know, what I could do is have them knock the tree over.
Yeah, you know.
And then we'll be done. We don't have to worry about the roots anymore.
We could hide that in the $1 million somewhere.
Hey, Scott,
I'll need your expertise on that, Bob.
is this
Pardon me?
going to interfere with the Trieste crossing change?
No. It's going to, well, actually what's going to happen is during this project, that Trieste crossing will not be accessible during construction of that side of the boardwalk.
So it could mean we'll have to delay the Trieste crossing thing until sometime during season?
No, we can go ahead and do it, but the owners won't be able to use it after we do the, it depends on.
It'll be blocked. Okay.
We can still do the project. It's not going to affect it.
My only concern is if there's going to be trucks coming in and out of that spot, is it possible they'll damage the pathway right there, especially the new one?
No, they haven't in the past. They haven't damaged any of the concrete. And they didn't damage any of the asphalt. If you look at the asphalt normally you have 3 inches of asphalt, and when we pulled up the asphalt cart paths, they were anywhere between 6 and 18 inches thick.
Yeah, they did a great job the last time. When they did the bridges, they were very
Yeah.
tight stretches.
Yeah.
If they damaged it, they'd fix it.
That's
Scott,
right.
Are
Yep,
you saying
they
that
buy
the,
it.
Scott, are you saying the asphalt of the call it the cart path going around the preserve is 6 inches thick?
I can't tell you that for sure, but the bridges, yes, they were up to 18 inches thick.
Of the asphalt?
Yes. Well, it's just easier to throw in asphalt than bring in fill dirt and do your 4 inches of asphalt.
Well, a suggestion at some point, and I don't want to belabor it at any point here, you may want to seal that asphalt. A very inexpensive thing to do, but it will preserve the surface of it.
Yeah.
It has some, I want to call it like a sand top, but it skids a little bit. But if you put a sealer on that, you'll preserve that for a long time. If it's that thick.
It's an application you use in parking lots too. It's called slurry seal. It seals
Right.
the asphalt, fills in minor cracks and
Very inexpensive.
imperfections.
It adds a lot of life to the surface of the asphalt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It will definitely look a lot better too.
Any more questions of Scott?
Scott, I have one question. If we don't get bids from other companies, and Phil, this might be something for you to answer, is there a legal way for us just to take the one bid and go with it?
We'll get bids, but they won't be qualified bids.
Joe, I can tell you on our ponds way back when we were doing repairs and the pipe work, stormwater pipe work, quite often the district awarded it to a single bidder because the other ones either weren't qualified or we didn't even take the low bidder on a couple of them because of the engineering experience of the lead firm. We decided not to take a chance to save a couple bucks, but to go with who we knew. And that is legal.
Okay, thank you.
I've done that on other projects.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And the term they use is the best and most, the best bidder, advantage to the district, so you don't have to take the low bid. And also, if it's under $200,000, you don't have to have more than one bid on a construction project.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any more questions of Scott?
Is there anything we could do, Scott, in advance of getting the permitting? I mean, could we give a pre-approval not to exceed? Do we want to do that?
Yes, you could do that. And once and if you don't mind us doing this, the thought process was, and what I spoke to Stokes about, was during the permit process, we could always start the demolition. So the demolition could be at least 2/3 of the way completed before we start the actual building, because the permit is for the construction, not the demolition.
Well, I would happily make a motion that we do that with a not to exceed number.
I would second that motion immediately.
So that would be
I'm for it.
that would be the amount that's currently on your spreadsheet.
Was it 1,000,000?
$1,040,960.
Well, then make it 1,060,000, not to exceed 1,060,000.
Okay.
But this is a not to exceed number for the entire project, is that right?
This is not to exceed for the boardwalk.
Construction of the composite decking.
The construction
Correct.
only.
Yes.
Yep.
So there's
Includes takedown.
No, demolition's included. The only thing that's not included in the proposal is if I have to do asphalt repair like I did with the bridges. Where we decided not to do asphalt, we put in concrete before the bridges. That was not part of the project original bid. This is just for the boardwalk.
But that would kind of be incidental money, nothing like the dollars we're looking at here.
That's correct.
Okay, I'm still good with the making the motion.
I'm okay with it.
Motion.
Do
Okay, we
you,
have a motion and a second to approve the proposal from Stokes Marine in amount not to exceed $1,060,000.
Scott, do you need this approved now?
Do I need this
Let him
approved
get
now?
started.
If I have it approved now, then I can initiate the PO through Chris and we can start the permitting process now.
Let's do it.
Phil, my
Yes.
thinking was, I don't care if it goes to Stokes or anybody that Scott's comfortable with, but we know we want to do it. And if there's limited bidders, at least he has the authority to go up to a not to exceed number. And if he, in his judgment, if, issues come up that we need to go, then we'll come back to us. But if not, let's plow ahead.
So your motion does not say award it to Stokes Marine.
I didn't say that. When someone.
No, you didn't say it. I just didn't catch it. So,
Well,
so what?
I would assume he didn't say it. Just,
Yeah.
the engineering authority or the construction authority goes to Castle to do that for us.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So,
That way
so
Scott has the latitude.
we are approving the expenditure of the
$50,000.
$1,050,000, not to exceed $1,050,000 for the construction of the boardwalk. Okay. I'm
I
okay.
second.
Now, the last comment on this project, Scott, is if there are issues with permits with the city of Fort Myers, either in volume or the cost, since Corona, those people have proved to be very, very flexible in reducing their costs for the permits, like 50%.
Yeah.
So if you need help, political help from that, get back to us and we can get Gail Anthony on board to help streamline this if we can, if needed.
Okay.
That's a
Okay.
resource, that's all.
Thank you. I'll let you know if I need Gail's help.
So-
And really, it'd be Carol Brokey to do it, but nevertheless, it's for the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there will be permitting costs though, in addition to this. Is that right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And any
I think we
ballpark?
previously approved that. I think we had previously approved that, Phil.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you did through the engineering part of it.
Right.
Correct,
Okay.
right.
Yep. Right. Okay.
And another aside is that, and I know Schumacher's listening to us, but the city of Fort Myers is not as flexible with Gateway as they are with us, so we make sure we make that firm distinction. Enough said on that.
Okay.
Chris, what did you do to the city, Chris?
Well, we actually don't do a whole lot with the city.
Let's just move
Okay.
on.
Any further comments on this motion? Okay, let's take a vote on it, Chris.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to approve $1,050,000 for construction of the boardwalk. Mr. Measy,
Aye.
Mr. Geppert,
Aye.
Mr. DePonte,
Aye.
Mr. Grega,
Aye.
Ms. Phillips,
Wait,
okay, and Mr.
My mouth's
Sikorsky,
still working.
Aye.
and Mr. Schofield.
Aye.
Okay, we've got a unanimous vote, and we will have to take that to the board at the next meeting because the amount is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
and that was the other part of it. This helps speed up that process too.
Yep.
I'll have that on the next board agenda.
Okay.
Okay. Well, you
Thank you.
have a couple of things to put on that agenda.
Right.
Okay. All right. Anything further, Scott?
No, that is all I have for today.
Okay. Bob, you wanted us to circle back to you?
Yeah, I want to make a motion that Ponds has the approval of PPAC to spend an amount not to exceed $387,000 to do the Matarita project, Matarita 1.
This is downspouts.
Downspouts, yes, I'm sorry.
I'll
Have a
second.
second.
Downspouts.
Do we have a second?
I'll second the
Second.
motion.
Okay, Joe seconds it. Okay.
Okay, well, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion, comments?
Can you tell me that amount again?
not to exceed $387,300 to do ponds 36, 40, 41, and 42.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I'll call the vote. Mr. Measy,
Aye.
Mr. Geppert,
Aye.
Mr. Ponte,
Aye.
Mr. Grega,
Aye.
Ms. Phillips,
Aye.
Mr. Schofield,
Aye.
Mr. Sikorsky.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes 7-0. We'll be taking that to the next CDD board for approval and issue of the contract and purchase order.
Okay. Anything further, Bob?
Nope, I've spent enough for one day.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
I've
I
got
have a question. Go ahead.
We'll get to committee member requests.
Okay.
Ron, you're finished with safety and security, is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. All right, we're on to committee member requests and audience comments. Teresa, you had a comment or a question?
Yes, I wondered if it was because of the corona virus that I didn't get a transcript of the April minutes so that I could have them ready for you today.
I will check and see. That should have gone to Infomart for transcription, but I'll find out where they're at with it.
Okay, if you could do that, I'd appreciate it.
There are really 2 April meetings, right? There's the budget workshop as well.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, I got one for Chris. Chris,
go ahead, Ron.
I got a copy of an email from Tony Piers. I guess he sent it to you initially. I'm not sure who else he might have sent it to, but it had to do with these reflectors that are in the roadway that mark where the fire hydrants are.
Sure.
Apparently, there's been a lawsuit from somebody who rode a bike over one of these things, fell down, got hurt, and he sued because the reflectors were not in the right part of the road. And Tony's comment was maybe we should go inspect them. Are you dealing with that?
Well, I may talk to one of the assistant chiefs over at South Trail about that. And it was interesting because he said they reviewed it and didn't think the suit had any merit because those reflectors are usually put out in the lane of travel. And so he said if they were on a sidewalk or in a bike lane and he was riding his bike in the road, oh well, and also they couldn't prove that was what actually caused his accident. He did make a couple comments, however. He said, well, the fire hydrants belong to you, so the markers, you may want to check them. And he goes, and those markers are really kind of old school because all our fire hydrants are on our GIS system now. So when the trucks roll up, they don't look for those blue reflectors anymore. They have the warning that comes up and tells them how many feet away from the fire hydrant they are. But we are working with them. They're going to send over their GIS map of all the fire hydrant locations they have, and then we'll be doing a survey.
Okay.
Do we need to do that with the city of Fort Myers also?
Well, I would think so. It's just a check, and what they're saying is the newer markers are beveled where the bevel is up, and it's smooth down in the direction of the lane of travel. But he said in most cases with the new ones now, they aren't even doing those installations. And one positive comment that came out of it is we are working with them now to get attached to their GIS dashboard. So if they find any fire hydrants that need repair or we do, we can report it to them and vice versa. And it shows up on their maintenance screen if that hydrant's under maintenance or repair.
Well, are you covering Pelican Preserve on this issue also?
Well, I'm covering it for the district's portion of it where our utilities serve Pelican, but not on the city of Fort Myers side. But I'd be happy to provide that information to the city.
I think we'd like you to do that.
Yeah.
just for information, since I got that email, it's one of those things, those little reflectors, everybody ignores them, and half the community probably don't even know why they're there. But I did notice, driving my golf carts on Pelican Reserve Boulevard between the crossing at Heron 3 to Heron 4, that it appeared one of those markers was pretty close to the curb. So just point of interest, it may be worthwhile to have them take a look at them.
Okay.
Hey, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I did have one other comment. I want to give an attaboy to Gateway, and specifically Brian Brashear, for the work that he's doing behind Goodwill and the Winn-Dixie shopping centers in cleaning out and basically rip-wrapping the two shoulders that conduct our water over to the 6 Mile Slough.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing that, and they're also going to be dredging the flowway shortly. And the flowway is not under our ponds work group. That is under the district. But I know there's a lot of concern when we had Irma about our ability to discharge water. And so I went over last week and met with Brian. He's the new stormwater utility guy, and they're doing a good job. They've got a good plan.
And don't forget the riprap at the bridge at Casella.
Oh, you've done that already. We already gave you an attaboy for that.
Okay. And those projects were in that original
Have another one.
report post Irma.
Yeah, this is all part of, we're still battling with Irma, believe it or not, folks. Yeah. We haven't resolved the issue of adjustable weirs, although we're working in that direction, I think. Would you agree with that, Chris?
Well, that's going to be an uphill battle, because how much water they're going to let you discharge into 6 Mile, and adjusting it will still be under the direction of the district, but it's just another rock to look under.
Yeah, it's so low right now, it's hard to think we need to talk about it, but it will be full again.
Well, I told Brian we could probably dredge the conveyance by just running the dump trucks and excavator right down the middle of it and drive to Casella.
Well, I clearly remember when we as a district let Lennar off the hook for taking out that island, and now it seems as though we're going to have bathymetric and dredging, and we should have charged them to do it, but that's a whole nother story. Okay.
Chris?
Mr. Chairman, Glenn here. What's the feeling on us actually meeting at Gateway on our June 11th meeting?
Right now, I think we should probably plan on another virtual meeting, as painful as they are. And if that changes, we'll get back to you.
If we do meet,
can't wait for that.
Yeah.
If we meet there, can I bring my martini with me?
I am looking forward to that day. That'll be like Christmas.
Been here.
I will mention that Stony Brook asked me because they have a real pain with virtual meetings, and I told them they could come over if they maintain the social distancing at the Diaz. They very, very rarely have more than 2 or 3 people at their meeting, but I told them I would shut the front and side doors and they'd have to come in and out of the side entrance, and that the janitorial firm would come in and spray the room with Enviro Shield when they left.
Oh. Phil,
okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Chris, question. You just sent out this, I guess it was a letter, email, a copy that I got emailed about the assessments. That's that only covered.
Study. That's the assessment methodology study, and I think you've received a copy of it before in the executive summary. And
right.
We also sent out that executive summary and the hearing notice in the utility bills this month. So all your residents in Pelican that are served by the district will all get a copy of that in the mail. And it's just really a public relations effort to get that information out to people so they can get familiar with it and have a chance to look at it. The public hearing's actually scheduled for next week, but because of the distancing that we're doing now and not able to hold a big public meeting, I would say for certain that hearing will be continued to another date. A couple of folks are of the opinion we should push it off to next year. A couple are of the opinion they want to move it forward. It has a section in the summary about the impacts to Pelican. It's a huge undertaking, and we really got the final report delivered with some corrections May 7th, and we're still vetting it internally, and other people are reviewing it. So,
But the summaries that I saw, and I only went over them briefly because I didn't have time before the meeting, only covered Gateway, I believe. There was nothing in there about Pelican.
if you look at the executive summary, the last page of that takes a look at the Pelican assessments, and it has a table there and mentions how they addressed it.
Okay, I missed that table. So it looks at the Pelican assessments as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And
Any
Phil,
other questions or comments?
just on the assessment methodology, Phil, I know, we've looked at that independently before and together in that meeting when Russ put it on.
Right.
But the shocker to me was the impact on the two golf courses. Gateway, I'm going off memory here, their assessment dropped 74,000 and the Pelican goes up 20. And I got a note to talk to Wiedemeyer about that because I don't understand that at all.
I think we have to look at that again, Mr. Gipper, because my recollection right now from my last review of it was the Gateway Golf Course went down 38,000, and there was also a corresponding reduction in the Pelican Golf Course.
Okay, then I don't have the current one. Okay.
Right, due to the amount of impervious surface.
Right.
Before it was just on a straight acreage, but now for the stormwater component, which is huge in the budget, it's based on impervious surface. So I could get that number for you, but there was a corresponding drop in the course over there where the adjustment was made that hurt them though, was on the impervious surface for the clubhouse and the parking apron out there, and also the trip generation from the clubhouse. It was traditionally done on that per acre charge, but now looking at the use of the facility.
Well, the thing I couldn't get my head wrapped around is we've got 27 holes, they've only got 18.
Right.
So if anything, I thought we would have been greater. But again, that's
It's the same.
I'm okay with what's going on with the homes. Don't like it, but I understand that.
Yeah.
Commercial and the homes, but that one's still
And we were trying to get that information out because again, when you do a project of this magnitude, I told them it really isn't enough time to vet. We really wanted to have this out on the streets in January to have 3 or 4 months for everyone to look it over, especially the commercial interests. You have some restaurants that before we're getting assessed, just by that equivalent residential unit. But when you look at the traffic count and the impact on the roadways, over at the Tavern on Gateway Boulevard, the assessment for that restaurant goes up $10,000.
yeah. And doing that to them at a time of COVID is kind of counterproductive, but whatever.
Well, that's what my memo said. I think it's fair and equitable and something that the other assessment was put in place in '86 and hasn't changed. But from a timing perspective, politically, it's terrible and trying to run this thing through right now.
Yeah. We wouldn't want to drive any businesses out. We don't have that many there.
No, and some of them are just opening back up or starting to, and then springing this on them. It's tough all the way around. It's going to be a tough decision for the board.
Chris,
Absolutely agree.
the clubhouse for Pelican Preserve, we don't have, they're not using the traffic thing in Pelican Preserve at all, right? It's just, so that shouldn't impact that one. Should only be the pervious, the impervious surface, it seems to me, right?
Right, but they did a calculation when you look at it, and I don't want to quote you anything off the top of my head. I'd rather look closer at it and then send you the page out of the report where the assessment went.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? We need to get to people attending the and I don't Gateway meeting attendance schedule, which I skipped over. The next one is next week is the 21st. Is that right?
Yes. Unless there's another budget one.
Yeah. And then what? June 4th, Chris?
Yes, June 4th.
And
I'll
then-
take June 4th.
Okay, Joe. Okay. Does someone already take May 21st?
You did,
I
Bill.
thought they had.
I did.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Teresa.
You're welcome.
And
Bill,
then
if
there
you
would,
want, I can probably take that.
can you take it, John?
I can, yes.
Okay, why don't you take it then? We'll switch that to you.
Okay, that's the 21st of May.
Yep.
Online.
And June, so we'd have a June 18th. Is there going to be a June 18th, Chris?
Let's see, that will be the 18th. Yes, sir.
Chris, will the pond business expenses be presented at that meeting?
I'll get those on for the 4th.
Okay. And Joe, I can handle the 4th because I got to be there for that anyway, but I'll leave that up to you guys.
Okay, you can do that, and I'll take what, the 18th then?
Okay, all right. Or Teresa said she could take the 18th, either one.
And the
Okay.
board will also be adopting the budget on June 4th for submission to the county property appraiser. And that at that time, that's the high water budget. So you can't increase your budget anymore from that point on. You can, however, decrease it.
Yep. Okay. So John on the 21st of May, Bob on the 4th of June, and Joe on the 18th of June.
Okay.
Okay.
Glenn, based on the vote we took earlier about the 80-some thousand dollars we're moving from community association to CDD, what's going to be the high watermark change, if anything, for us?
Well,
We had that
it's a
1 point.
Yeah, a million.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah. It's the original 1,426,883, which we had agreed to, plus 93,411. So the number is 1,520,294. That's our high
Okay.
water mark.
And last year we were at what?
1,335,111 was the budget.
Whoa. Give me say them again real quickly. Last year's first and then next year's.
Okay.
Last year's first.
Last year's budget was 1 million.
Yeah, current year. This year.
1,335,111.
And now we're going to go with the 2021.
Will be 1,520,294.
Slower, 1,500,000.
Yeah.
What was it?
Gee, Bob.
I couldn't hear.
Okay, let me get it in a minute here.
I got it written down.
1,520,294.
2094.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
And Mr. Skorsky, are you going to revise that Exhibit B budget sheet? We can get that over to Infomart to include in the final budget proposal.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So we are increasing our budget. Our high watermark, $197,000, of which some number is SSA or PCA, and then the rest is primarily the safety. Is that pretty close?
Yeah, and there are a few other things besides the safety in there.
Yeah. But basically, that's what it is. Okay.
Yeah, that's basically it.
So,
yep.
I didn't get the final number. It flipped out when Teresa was saying it. It's
1,520,294.
Okay, thank you.
No. That's not what I said. I don't know if I wrote it down wrong.
Say it again, Teresa.
What I said was 1,522,094.
Okay.
Okay, somebody, let's,
Down in a minute.
Oh, you're killing me here. I got 1,520,294.
that's what I get, Glenn.
Okay.
That's the
Well,
number
then I
I,
misunderstood, Phil.
You transferred the two. It's 1,520,294.
right.
Okay, thank you.
What's 20,000 among friends?
I know.
That's only 2,000 a month.
Oh, you're right. You can see how I won bonds. I'm all wet. Okay.
That's why I learned this in third grade.
Right. Okay, any more discussion? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank
Take
you all.
care. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.